Staten Kirkland lowered the brim of his felt resistol as he turned into the wind. The hat was about to live up to its name. Hell was blowing down from the north, and he would have to ride hard to make it back to headquarters before the full fury of the storm broke. His new mount, a roan he'd bought last week, was green and spooked by the winter lightning. Staten had no time to put on the gloves in his back pocket. He had to ride. When the mare bucked in protest, he twisted the reins around his hand and felt the cut of leather across his palm as he fought for control of both his horse and the memories threatening as low as the dark clouds above his head. Icy rain had poured that night 5 years ago, only he hadn't been on his ranch. He'd been trapped in the hallway of the county hospital 50 miles away. His son had lain at one end, fighting for his life, and reporters had huddled just beyond the entrance at the other end, hollering for news. All they'd cared about was that the kid's grandfather was a United States Senator. No one had cared that Staten, the boy's father and only parent, held them back. All they'd wanted was a headline. All Staten had wanted was for his son to live. But he didn't get what he wanted. Randall, only child of Staten Kirkland, only grandchild of Senator Samuel Kirkland, had died that night. The reporters had gotten their headline, complete with pictures of Staten storming through the double doors, swinging at every man who tried to stop him. He'd left 2 reporters and a clueless intern on the floor, but he hadn't slowed. He'd run into the storm that night, not caring about the rain, not caring about his own life. 2 years before, he'd buried his wife, and now he would put his son in the ground beside her because of a car crash. He'd had to run from the ache so deep in his heart it would never heal. Now, 5 years later, another storm was blowing through, but the ache inside him hadn't lessened. He rode toward headquarters on the half-wild horse. Rain mixed with tears he never let anyone see. He had wanted to die that night. He had no one. His wife's illness had left both father and son bitter, lost. If she had lived, maybe Randall would have been different, calmer. Maybe if he'd had her love, the boy wouldn't have been so wild. He wouldn't have thought himself so invincible. Only taking a winding road at over 100 miles per hour had killed him. The car his grandfather had given him for his 16th birthday a month earlier had missed the curve heading into Ransom Canyon and rolled over and over. The newspapers had quoted one first responder as saying, "Thank God he'd been alone. No one in that sports car would have survived." Staten wished he'd been with his boy. He'd felt dead inside the day he buried Randall next to his wife, and he felt dead now as memories pounded. He rode close to the canyon rim as the storm raged, almost wishing the jagged earth would claim him too.